Hey, all, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mike Muldoon Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. So 2 years ago, I started this podcast, well, a little over 2 years ago, because I started it on my birthday. And my birthday passed again this week, passed about 2 days ago. I have turned the big 50. And I don't know, it's a tough one sometimes. I mean, I'm not upset about it, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, there was something about always being in the 40s was fine, but then now it's like 50. But you know what? I saw this quote one time. It said, "Do not regret growing older. It is a privilege denied to many." So with that being said, I do appreciate that I'm 50 and hopefully many, many more years to come. But, you know, turning 50, for some people, it's just another number, right? But for others, it feels like standing at the halfway point of life. You know, just looking back at all that's happened and forward as to, what might come, right? It's like when this milestone was kind of approaching, it was really easy to feel like the weight of time now pressing down, not necessarily because of the number itself, but because of what, we use that number to represent, whether it's like when we turn 30 or 40 or 50 or, eventually 60, hopefully, and 70 and 80, whatever, we're always asking ourselves, have I done enough? Am I where I thought I would be by now, right? And sometimes that worry and anxiety that comes from those questions can be challenging, especially when we feel like we're behind. To be honest with you, I feel like I'm behind. There's so much I'm trying to do and so much I'm trying to accomplish. But I also have to remember myself, the truth is this number, this number 50, even though it often serves as a mile marker, I can't use it to measure myself against the expectations I thought I would have here, right? Or the expectations, that might have been set by society or those that were, maybe shaped by people around us. By the time I was your age, whatever. Somewhere along the way, it feels like we picked up the idea that 50, we should have reached certain career milestones, found ourselves in solid relationships, personal, professional, raised our children, which I'm doing, but mine are still younger. It's interesting right now to see so many of my friends with their kids are going off to college and mine are still in primary school. That's interesting. But, and some people in some cases already starting retirement. I saw a buddy of mine from college, a guy I played football with. He just recently, retired. Insane. It's crazy. And in some way, I guess, we paint the picture of what 50 should look like. And if our reality doesn't match up, it is really easy to fall in that trap of thinking that, somehow we have failed. But the truth is we haven't. You haven't. We haven't failed. The problem with these milestones is that they don't take into account that the richness of an unpredictability of life. See, the idea that by 50, we need to have it all figured out is outdated. It's unhelpful. Life is not a linear journey where each, age neatly sort of checks off a box, right? It's an adventure full of twists, surprises, successes, and setbacks. And often the path we take, end up far more interesting than the one we thought we were supposed to follow. So again, if you're somebody like me who just turned 50, or if you're turning 50 and you're worried about this, or maybe even you're turning 60 or 40, whatever it is, and you're worried that you're behind, take a moment to step back. Recognize that being behind is only true if you're comparing yourself to a script that you never needed to follow. It's important to remember that each person's journey is unique. Maybe you've had to deal with a lot of unexpected challenges. Maybe you've pursued dreams that took a little bit longer, or maybe you've chosen a completely different path. None of that means that you're behind. It means that you have lived. And I can attest to this because I would probably be so much further along in life on so many levels if I would have just stuck to one path. But for me, the path is about life, is about living. It's not just about existing in. I don't want to get to that sad moment in life of an impending death and wonder, why didn't I do this? Or why didn't I try? Why did I just, settle for, well, this is life and this is all you ever have to be? No. Now, again, I'm not sitting there saying I'm living recklessly. I have family. I have kids. I have responsibilities, but it doesn't mean that I need to stop living It just means that I've got to start trying to figure out other ways to keep living a fulfilling and fruitful life, which, by the way, when you live that way and your kids see you're living that way, it also empowers them to know that they can live that way. No kid wants to come home and see two miserable parents sitting around just hating their lives, especially that energy would bring into the house. So what I'm saying is, at my age, again, I could have been a lot further if I just stayed on one path, but because I want to live a more fulfilling and fruitful life, I don't want to live in a life of regret. It has taken me a little bit longer, and I've hit 50, and I'm probably not where most people would expect you to be at 50. But it's okay, because like I said, life to me is about living. It's not just about existing. And I've talked about this many times in my podcast, is that, so many people think they're living because, they got a pulse, they got up, they're breathing, they're walking around, they're eating, they're driving their cars, they're going to work, they're talking to people, they're texting, they're on social media, but they're not. They're just existing. They're just getting from 1 hour to the next, to the next, to the next, without any thought as to whether or not this is a life they really want to be living. All right. So look, if you're somebody, who's dealing with the worry of turning 50 or 30 or 40 or 60, again, whatever it is, we need to start reframing how we see milestones. Rather than viewing any of these numbers as a deadline by which certain things have been accomplished, try to see it as a new chapter, a time when you've gathered enough wisdom and experience to make some truly, meaningful choices. Like when I turned 40, I became a dad. So that's a really interesting. Literally, my daughter was born 6 days before me. It's birthday season here. So my daughter's birthday was just a few days ago. So my daughter was born, I turned 40. So my 40 right now is bookend between, my daughter's first year all the way to her 10th year. So when I look at, and when I also look at myself as well, I try to look at myself that I've spent 50 years getting to know myself, discovering my strengths, learning from my mistakes. I mean, there are so many things now that I've learned that I know I can handle better, that if certain successes or certain things had presented themselves to me in my 20s or my 30s, I would not have been able to handle it. I would have not have been good with it. I probably would have ruined it. So I look at stuff like that, like I'm much more stronger in the person that I am. And of course, I've been able to learn from a lot of my mistakes. So, you often hear this, there is a certain kind of freedom that comes with age. And the freedom to define that success on our own terms, okay? So again, for anybody, it seems like a lot of my listeners are around my age. So any of this, anybody who's considering, who's approaching or recently hit the 50, there's still so much time to do what you love. I mean, you're old enough to know what you want, but you're young enough to pursue it. Many people start new careers, hobbies, or passions after 50. It was, Vera Wang didn't even start designing wedding dresses until she was 40. Colonel Sanders didn't even open up his first KFC until his 60s. Life isn't about rushing to the finish line. It's about savoring that journey and enjoying each step. So again, as you're hitting these milestones, don't put society. I think a lot of it is societal pressures, especially the way our parents grew up. You go to school, you get to college, you get out, you get a good job, you get married, you have kids. You get married, you buy the house, you have some kids, you raise your kids, you do all that. And it was almost like if you weren't married or doing anything by the time you were 30, it's like, what are you doing? And I think that's where we originally got these sort of milestones. But this isn't the world we live in anymore. Okay. So again, if you're approaching any of these milestones, about where you are in life, and you're having some anxiety about it, just try some of these approaches, which, probably can help you out in so many things. Because you listen to my podcast, it's a lot of times it's the same stuff, people. But number one, practice the gratitude. Like that original quote I opened up with, right? I can't regret getting older because it's a privilege denied to many. I'm lucky that I got to 50. I'm lucky. And hopefully it's 60 and 70 and 80 and so on and so forth, and in good sound mind and in good sound shape. But practice gratitude. Stop focusing on what you haven't done, but take a moment to acknowledge what you have. Think about the relationships you've nurtured, the lessons you've learned, the challenge you overcome, or maybe think about those things you hadn't done, and maybe it's time to start moving towards it. Maybe for some of you, it was, you had an opportunity to raise your children and you did all that wonderful stuff, and now they're out. Be grateful that you got that opportunity, but don't let it stop you now from all these years here, maybe doing something that you wanted to do, right? Stay present in life. Anxiety often comes from worrying about what should have been or what should be. Stay present on the moment now. Allow yourself to appreciate what is rather than getting caught up in sort of hypotheticals, right? Again, favorite quote of mine comes from, oh man, I can't remember it right now. I say it all the time too. I know the quote, it's who wrote it, but it was basically, I've suffered many great tragedies in life, some of which have actually come true, which means, again, we stress ourselves out. We get angry, we get anxiety, we get freaked out about all this stuff that may happen, that doesn't happen. And yet we've put ourselves through just an incredible amount of stress and anxiety. And remember, stress and anxiety for you is not very good. Again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Stress and anxiety can create physical ailments in your body. So stay present. Right? Celebrate your own timeline. 50 is an age, not a deadline. 30 is an age, not a deadline. Celebrate where you are and what you have to offer rather than getting lost in comparisons with what your friends or your families or everybody else has, right? The other thing is, set new goals, not deadlines, right? Goals are something they can take longer. Sometimes they're faster for people. Sometimes they're longer, right? But it's never too late to start something new. Use this time to set new goals, but without the pressure of an arbitrary deadline like, well, I got to get this done by the time I'm 35 or 45 or 55. The aim is progress. It's not perfection, all right? So if you're hitting any of these milestones, and again, like for 50, it's just not about marking an end or even a peak. It's about recognizing a significant step in a lifelong journey. Each day you have is a gift that can be filled with new meanings, new discoveries, and joys. See, the best thing you can do is honor your unique path. Embrace the lessons learned along the way and step forward without this burden of these unrealistic expectations that were put on forth by, other people, because that's what they thought. That's what they believed. But you live your own life, right? So again, as you stand at any new milestone you're hitting in age, because it's amazing how many times I hear kids going, oh my God, I'm 20 and I don't have this. Are you kidding me? Guys, if you're one of these people out there, or ladies, I didn't figure myself out till 40s, okay? Till my 40s. So don't put that much pressure on yourself. If anything, your 20s is where you screw up. Your 30s is where you're still allowed to screw up a little bit and figure some stuff out and start learning from it. Then I got to my 40s, and some people might have got later, all right? But don't put too much pressure on yourself. Again, these milestones, they're not a marker. It's not what's lost or lacking. It's just a testament so that we've all experienced and we still have a lot left to do, all right? So for me, turning 50 isn't something to fear. It's just something to celebrate. Again, because I got lucky to get here and hopefully I get many years. And turning 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it is for you is the same thing, okay? Anyway, I'll take your happy birthdays. Thank you very much. And as always, I wish you the best. I'm almost done with my book. Yeah, I started writing a book. We'll talk more about it as time. A lot of it's just stuff I talked in a book, but it's really just about 5 keys, I think. 5 keys in life that if you live by these 5 keys, I think you'll be fine. So other than that, I appreciate you so much. Have a great weekend. I know I'm going to. My wife is having a little party for me with some friends local, which would be nice, and some of the family that's here in the UK. Great. And going to see the Jets play the Vikings. Oh, God, after they played last week, this is going to be really hard. Please give me the W. Oh, man, it's going to be tough. Anyway, listen to me. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And as always, I got nothing but love for you.